You need to do it 3 times?
Sure, why not?
Okay. So you're probably thinking. What's that kid doing? So you're probably thinking, how do we grade films?
Do we just pull these out of our ass?
Or, how the fuck did I end up on this channel?
And who the fuck are these assholes telling me what I should and should not like?
Or, why aren't you guys doing an actual film review instead of just giving us your brain's diarrhea to eat?
Brains diarrhea.
Well, we will answer both the foremost and lattermost questions in consecutive order. A few things to keep in mind before we get to the complicated grading system. It must be usable by every moviegoer. It must be applicable to every film. It recognizes that people and film critics weigh different qualities of a film differently. It acknowledges that 2 people can grade a film differently, yet still both be right because they are looking at different viewpoints. But it must also accurately represent the quality of a film, objectively. So if 2 people are using the same scale and they grade a movie, you should be able to better see where the other person is coming from. You'll know exactly why I'm saying what I'm saying.
We have 13 different ranks for our movies, starting at the top, the A+, on all the way to the bottom, to the worst fucking movie imaginable, an F.
So we'll give you a few examples, but the idea is to fit the movie to the grade and not vice versa. You don't just pull a grade out of your ass and say, oh, I think it was an A movie because I really liked it. You say that an A movie is a masterpiece, and if this movie is also a masterpiece, then it can fit into the A category.
Or if it's complete and utter shit, you know where to put it.
We'll tell you where to put it.
What you need to realize is each ranking for the grade, we'll use B's for an example, B+, B, and B-, are in the same category. For instance, if a B- film was flawed and you speculated what improvements you can make to it, the highest grade you could give it would be a B+. Anything higher than that, it starts becoming a different movie.
One of the ways we're grading is how many times would the average person watch a movie? And we're judging on the conservative end. Movies in the A category are worth watching an unlimited number of times. B category, not so much. You can watch them a few times. C's, you're debating whether you should watch them or not. D's are not usually worth watching, but we'll go into more detail into those. F, well. One last point before we start. These 13 grades have to encompass all of cinematic history. They have to fit every movie, so some of the ways we graded these movies might not make common sense. So we'll explain them all to you. We'll start with an A, because an A is pretty easy. It's a masterpiece. You could watch it 100 times and still see things that you never saw before and still be entertained and emotionally engaged by it.
The themes and messages an A movie wants to say will be timeless and relevant to any current date.
It is objectively fantastic. Some examples of this might be The Deer Hunter, The Godfather Part 2, Citizen Kane. I'm sure you get the idea. An A- is for a film that could have been a masterpiece but fell just a little bit short.
If an A is a masterpiece, then an A- is an incomplete masterpiece.
You could watch this 10 times and still find it entertaining. The few flaws that it has are pretty much negligible.
The differences between an A and an A- are noticeable. An A- movie likely has a little bit more flaws than an A movie that you just can't get out of your head.
So we gave The Godfather an A-, District 9 an A-. When we put any movie into an A category, we're not doing it lightly. These films really deserve it. A B+ is a great movie, but there are flaws that start to creep in and you start to doubt whether it could have been in the A category. In fact, its flaws start to weigh it down at this point.
But they're overshadowed because of the benefits of watching this film.
A B+ movie is worth seeing twice and then maybe 3 times. An example of this might be Watchmen. Now, B is a decent movie. On many other people's scales, they might call it a C. We say it's a B because its flaws equal its triumphs.
It's a little rough around the edges. Sometimes some of the great directors of our time debut with B movies. For example, The Terminator is a B movie. James Cameron is a very prominent director who has filmed better movies than Bs.
An explanation for this was that they were playing it safe for their first movie, but they still wanted to come out of the gate with something that would impress people. Now, B movie is worth seeing once and maybe again. Now, there's probably a memorable scene in it, but there's not much more than that. You won't exactly remember all of the characters after the movie's over. Now, B- is only worth watching once. So a B- is probably not going to stick around for very long.
B- movie is entertaining, but it's not really memorable.
Now, a lot of core parts of this movie are intact, but the flaws bring down the whole film, and they outweigh all of the good parts in the film.
So yes, it is worth seeing. So yes, it is worth seeing, but beyond that, not really.
C plus has many major flaws in it. It is not emotionally engaging or entertaining.
And it does lack focus in most parts of the film.
It could feel like a waste of time for a lot of people.
Certain people could probably enjoy a C plus movie, but that's not a lot of people.
A C movie is only worth watching if you have nothing else to watch, or this is an alternate reality where C movies are normally good. There is not enough time in your life to go from watching A plus movies to C plus movies, so why watch a C movie?
There are probably maybe a little things worth in a C, but honestly, it's not worth the effort, and it's a complete waste of your time.
This movie shouldn't be fixed anyway. You shouldn't consider saying, hey, I could make this a C plus movie. Why bother?
The core movie is really flawed, and if you tried improving it, you might as well just write a script yourself.
A C minus movie should not be considered watchable unless for a very specific purpose. It may have only one point of value in the entire movie. It is generally considered a failure, both critically and popularly.
And it is unenjoyable at all levels.
So an example of a C- movie would be The Godfather Part 3. It has a single point of value because it's a sequel to the first and second Godfathers,
which are great films.
It continues storylines which you might be interested in where Francis Ford Coppola was going with it.
And you're already connected to these characters.
But beyond that, it's complete shit. A D plus movie is the best of the worst.
These movies are sometimes called the worst movies of all time. Even though that's not really true, it's just that they're so bad, they're actually really funny. The reason why these movies are on a lower ranking is because you can actually go to a friend's house and they'll actually recommend watching this film just to fucking laugh at it. Even though that wasn't the director's intended purpose, still giving you something worth of value.
Even if it's a terrible movie, if it has significance, it deserves higher than a D. D plus, C minus, you be the judge.
Examples of D plus movies would be The Room or
Troll
2.
Then we come to the D films, the complete trash of cinematic history.
Really giant piles of shit. There's nothing in there for you to stick out and maybe pull out a nugget of gold. No, it's just shit.
There is no significance behind it. There is no value in any of the plots.
Its story is horrid, its characters are dumb, and it'll fade rather quickly from your mind.
You'll never remember it because, well, there's nothing to remember. Now you might be asking, this category sounds like it would be an F movie. Well, we had to reserve the D minus and the F for something a little different.
D minus films are degrading.
They could be homophobic, racist, sexist.
They actually take away from society. There's no improvements making here. In fact, it's taking us backwards just having this film be released.
It's 1950s racism. It's the 2000s homophobic-ism. Whatever motivation there was for making this film, it was probably intentionally bad. And this applies to the D, D minus, and F. A normal director could not make a movie this bad without intentionally doing so. And the D minuses are worth boycotting.
What would you say an example of a D minus is?
We could say Transformers is a D minus. Why? There's sexism. Is there racism? Is there anything homophobic about them? Maybe, maybe not. But if it has one of those, and it's pretty bad, which Transformers is, then it fits into this category. So now we come to the last two hardest grades to achieve, the F and the A+. The F encompasses everything that the D minus have, but it has a evil quality to it. What might be an evil quality like that of Hitler, you might ask? Or Ronald Reagan?
Ronald Reagan, yes.
So to give you an example of an F movie, take Star Trek Into Darkness, right? I would say that this is a D minus movie, except for one thing. It is racist.
And why is it racist? Stay tuned for our review.
But to give you the summary, making Star Trek a racist film based on the original, which was known for culturally being ahead of its time. If you remember, Uhura left the show mid-season, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called her up to personally tell her what a big influence she was to the civil rights movement at the time. And he convinced her to come back onto the show.
The actor Nichelle Nichols. You had people from different cultures and races in prominent roles on primetime television.
So what did Star Trek Into Darkness do? Well, it created a bunch of racial tensions between all of these characters. Just in the second scene alone, we see that Kirk's character is calling Spock pointy and a handful of other Vulcan racial slurs, which then they did take farther with other races, and they whitewashed Khan's character. The list goes on and on. So you can see what this film is doing now. It's perverting Gene Roddenberry's vision of racial racial equality.
It's taking everything that he was representing in Star Trek and fucking those values out of it. That's what you're doing. You're fucking the meaning out of Star Trek.
Whatever asshole wrote this fucking movie, realize what you've done.
And repent. Come to us and ask for forgiveness.
If you do not see them asking forgiveness in the comment section below, then you cannot forgive this movie.
But are you seeing a pattern here? These films are rather popular.
So you should watch our reviews so that we tell you how full of shit they are.
See, we're actually trying to save humanity here. These films are degrading our society, and they are popular, and they are making a shit ton of money. But we are trying to pull away from that and get us away from the brink of complete and utter shit.
We're like Jesus Christ and his apostles. We're trying to save humanity from these awful fucking movies.
Yeah, they're forged in the hellfires of Hollywood.
Hellfires of Hollywood!
Hollywood!
Now, finally, we get to the A+ movie. This is really incredibly difficult to say what is an A+ movie and what's only an A. As if there's something wrong with an A movie.
Right. It is beyond the A movie, almost unattainable.
I think a good measure for what makes an A+ movie is take 10 of what you would consider an A movie and only pick one of those movies from that list. You can see how hard it would be to get an A+ movie out of that list. You could go your entire life and never see an A+ movie. In fact, I'm not even sure if I've ever seen an A+ movie.
I don't think I have either.
Also, if you don't know what an A+ movie is, you can just ask your film professor, because he knows what's up. Interestingly enough, I had a film professor that had a peculiar way of grading an A+ movie. Now, this guy said that he needed to wait 10 years before he could say that A+ movie is an A+. The flaw I see with this way of thinking is that what if a movie comes out and you don't think it's an A+, and then 10 years down the line you do think it's an A+? Does that make it an A+ movie or only an A? Because I've followed a few film critics over the years, and I've found that as they've gotten older, they've become sentimental, and they've become rather nostalgic, and they're looking backwards at these movies. I wouldn't include that measurement in our A+ movies, but it is worthy of noting anyway. So there you have it, our entire grading system. So if you're going to bitch about how our grade of a movie is wrong in the comments section below, at least use our scale to do so, because otherwise your comments mean nothing.
And we will ignore you and possibly say that you are spam.
But if you haters use our scale to tell us how full of shit we are, we will still love you as if you are Jesus's baby. Leave a dislike and comment below.
If there's anything unclear, just leave a comment, tell us, ask us, and maybe we'll think about making another video explaining to you dipshits what we actually meant to say. Not that you guys are dipshits, but I mean, you could be, so I don't know.
Some of you are.
Most likely.